Hey, one, hey, all. Come, one, come all to the greatest show on earth, which is, by definition, this one. The Monday mental health tip for the broken brain, the greatest show of all time. Well, that's a little pressure I'm creating for myself. In fact, maybe that's a good thing for us to think about today. Um, by the way, the Monday mental health tip has been absent for a couple weeks. Apologies about that, but glad to be sharing this with you again. So, let's dive into what I just said. Kind of, we all are familiar with pressure, stress, anxiety, and anxiety. If you like to mispronounce things like I do. And a good thing to look at when we're experiencing anxiety is how many of those things are tied up into ours or others' expectations. And then going back to the underlying assumptions we have about maybe those and other expectations, and asking ourselves, how many, if any, of those things are something that feels more urgent than it really is? You may have heard me say this before, but anxiety is like a magnifying glass. And like most magnifying glasses that I've come across, it amplifies and distorts something, an item. And generally speaking, that item is actually there. At least with a magnifying glass, that's how that technology works. It doesn't generate images. It just goes over something real. Anxiety, much of the time, is the same way. Most people who have higher anxiety correlate also with higher intelligence, which makes sense because you can gather, synthesize, and theorize and imagine about experiences and information that is real, actually, most of it. For example, if you have an anxiety around sharks, it's going to mostly affect most people with that when you are in the ocean. It's not going to really affect you when you are walking across your kitchen. I mean, I don't know your kitchen, but most of us don't keep sharks in there. And so therefore, anxiety isn't going to probably be as successfully attacking us at that moment. Okay. But if we have anxiety about something else that could really happen, let's say a carbon monoxide leak or whatever, and just as I hesitate to even say that because I know there's probably a lot of people who have that anxiety. That's something that really could happen. And so taking some moderate level of normal, typical precautions and everything is even healthy to have a, carbon monoxide detector in your house, that type of thing, right? But anxiety will magnify and distort that to where it's like, if it could happen, then it probably will. And if it were likely to happen, then it definitely will. And if it's something that is happening and coming down the pike, it is going to have the worst consequences that anything has ever had. I mean, so anxiety will amplify and bump up something up on the urgency scale. And a couple of definitions here. When I say urgency, that is in this case to be defined as something that if I do not do something about it right now, something bad will happen. It is the bear that's chasing me, or the car's on fire, or something like that. If I don't do something right now, it'll be worse, whatever that thing is, to survive or deal with a situation. Importance is different than urgency. Many of the things that are amplified by anxiety are actually very important. That's why they are effectively turning into anxious feelings most of the time. And so when we look at something one of the first questions is to ask ourselves, is this actually urgent or is this simply important? Important's still important, but important things don't have to happen right this second. If I'm worried about my performance at work or something like that, as a matter of fact, it usually can't be solved in the immediacy, which anxiety is designed for surviving something urgent right now. So anxiety is very, very difficult, more difficult to deal with when it's something that is important, but not quite urgent. So start with that question of urgency versus importance, and then we can go into this question of how much of this is based off something that I assume that I have to do or that I maybe have always done, and it might be worthwhile to question the underlying assumption. This is very evident in the case of traditions, for example. If there's a tradition that I'm not able to do, how guilty do I feel about that? And is that tradition, let's say if it's a holiday tradition, for example, is it meant to enhance the enjoyment or is it meant to be a burden? Well, or rather, how is it functioning? I don't think most people start a tradition saying this will be a burden, but it can get that way. And being open to that realization is why we can question assumptions. Or is this something that I feel like I need to do that maybe someone else has not asked me to do? I'm just taking it on myself. Or maybe they've even expressly told me, no, I got it. You don't have to do that, or whatever. And I think I do anyway. Or, just kind of asking that. And once again, am I approaching something because it's something I want to do? I have the time and resources to do it, or I can even stretch or sacrifice a little, and it means a lot to me to do this. Or is it something that I feel I have to? It's become a burden. There can be a lot of overlap in this area, and it's good to kind of look at this sometimes as a ratio between, is this something I want to and feel good about doing versus is this something that has become burdensome? And sometimes even talking to people can be healthy. Talking to people who are involved with things that I assume need to happen and when they need to happen, and talking about maybe sharing the burden or even just processing what I'm going through when I usually wouldn't talk about it. So this all goes back into this idea of expectations. What is it that I feel I need to do? How is it I feel it needs to be done? When is it that it needs to be done? There's a popular management technique that they'll teach managers, which can be very frustrating if they use it, but it also is pretty effective. So if you go to a manager or a leader of some kind and you say, hey, can you help me with this problem? The technique is to say, great, let's be honest about what's the timeline on this problem. When do we need an answer? And it can be healthy for someone to say, I don't really know, but give me the information, then let's both think about it and let's get back together. If the thing needs to be solved in 2 weeks, let's get back together somewhere between a week and 2 weeks, right? Depending on when it needs to when you actually need an answer. If I need it tomorrow, great. Let's maybe even take 20 minutes or something, or let's talk after lunch. Now, that can feel very frustrating in the moment, but there's kind of two reasons why this is effective. One reason is that it gives you time to think about things. You don't have to. Many managers, they feel pressure to pretend that they know everything, and then they give worse answers, right? But if we're both cooking and letting it cook in our minds, we might think of some solutions. The other thing is, if there's something I need to do and it doesn't need to happen for, let's say, an extended amount of time, and I wait a little while, it may resolve itself. So there's all sorts of reasons to question what it is I'm worried about, how much I'm worried about it, what I think I need to do, when I need to do it, and kind of putting it through that little gauntlet of questions. It's one of the anxiety management techniques that you might find to be helpful. As you know, The Broken Brain highlights one nonprofit organization every month. We tend to lean into local nonprofits as we hear about the international and national level nonprofits and charities more often. But I like to dig into some local neighborhood areas and look for what charities are doing things in their area. Well, in the month of July, we were focused on Learning Works, which is an organization in Maine, southern Maine, particularly within the United States. And their stated mission is equipping Maine learners with the confidence and skills to realize their full potential. This is an organization that specializes in offering academic supports to those who might otherwise fall through the cracks and not receive help. They do after-school and summer school programs to help people, to help kids prepare, but they do work with adults as well to help prepare. As we're going through July right now, we are probably halfway through the summer in most states, and you've got kids that are going to be going back to school. And so this is a great time to think about an organization like this. Go to learningworks.me to learn more about their history, their story, and how long they've been around. They're very highly rated in charity rating websites. And from what I've learned about them, I feel very good making them our nonprofit of focus for the month of July. As always, if you join the Patreon, you get bonus materials and you help support The Broken Brain so that I'm able to do more in coverage of psychology, culture, and those kinds of things. Also, half of your donation will always go to the nonprofit that was being focused on when you joined. So 50% of your Patreon donation will go to Learning Works if you join Patreon in the month of July for the duration of your membership, as well as your access to them funds, things that I use on there as well. Everybody have a great July so far, and we'll be back with another tip next week, and you'll be hearing a brand new episode with a wonderful interview tomorrow. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.